This is Mike Strickler, Director of Coaching for Florida Youth Soccer. Basically what we're going to do today is we're going to do from the International Coaching Symposium that we were going to have this year in 2020. The people that we have working on that is Rui Fernandez, Fred Dukranian, and Jack Dukranian. So as we're going through this, one of the things that we're going to look at is how can this work with the coaches that we have. So we have Michael Bonnell, who was Le Havre in France, which is basically one of the top academy programs in the country. They have like Pogba, they got Magapi, they've got Mendy. So those are some of the players that have been through this program. So as we're looking at this, we've got another guy from Canada, from IMB Canada, and it's interesting because Canada's a lot like the US. Europe they play a lot more street soccer, especially with the lower level players. In Canada and the US, we don't play a lot of street soccer. So now we've got to work with that and kind of say, how can we put these coaches together and kind of come up with a good angle? So I think what's going to happen is I think that we're going to listen to them talk about what they do in their clubs, and then we're going to kind of go through and see how does that help us? Because we look at him, he's getting like 60 players, but they're going over to Europe. He's already got the top players. He's got the lower level players. And then they kind of talk about how this works within their programs. So as we look at this, one of the things we look at is Michael Bonnell talks about the developmental period. It may be short for players like Mende, who is able to come in at 13 and then at 17 he signs a professional contract. And then there's other players that takes a longer time and they become a professional player. I mean, one of the things that they looked at is there's got to be more training and fewer games. We've all talked about that. So I think that that's something we need to look at is more training and fewer games. One of the last pieces that Michael Burnell is looking at is basically, can we take those and can we begin to scan the fields? And you're saying, well, what's scanning the field? Well, scanning is getting our eyes up so that we're looking at the field. So the players are always moving, okay? So I think that that's something that we can kind of work at in terms of how are our players scanning, because to be realized, the top level players aren't even looking at the ball because they know where the ball is going to come. They're just trying to figure out how they're going to get there. And then the last piece that we talk about, that Bassam talks about, is the quality of the coach. Because a quality coach, you have to deal with the players instead of dealing with the entire group. So instead of working about the exercise, we got to worry about how are the players dealing with the exercise. So that's kind of what we're going to do. Fred Dukranian is going to be interviewing these coaches, and they're going to talk about how this works in their program. You'll see Mikel, he's in Europe. He's got all the players. He's getting all the top level players. Bassam's in Canada, but he's getting players going to Europe, and they'll talk about how they're doing it, because what Mikel can do is different than what Bassam can do. Okay, and how does Bassam handle those players as we move forward? So we're going to kind of listen to this conversation and go from there. Thank you.
So first, I want to welcome our special guests, two very good friends of mine. First, Michael Bonnell. He's the technical director for Le Havre alongside Francois. Le Havre is one of the best academies in Europe for developing the youth player. In France, Le Havre is #1. So a report came out this year, and Le Havre was ranked #1 in all of the academies in placing players into the top 5 leagues in Europe. When you compare Le Havre to the top youth academies across the world and then Europe, they're in the top 15, if not very close to the top, if you get really detailed about it. And that's just as far as producing players. When you speak to other experts along Europe, they say Le Havre is one of the top 5, or 6 clubs in Europe. So not only is Michael at Le Havre, but he's the technical director responsible for the programming scouting, player identification, top to bottom. He oversees it. Also coaches and works with the players. For those of you that don't know the players that Luhav and Mikel has had an opportunity to work with, he's worked with most recently Ferland Mendy from Real Madrid, Paul Pogba, Manchester United, Benjamin Mendy, Manchester City, Riyad Mahrez, Manchester City, Dimitri Payet, and Mandanda, and the list keeps going on, and I could go on. Literally, there's a wall when you go into the academy, and it's photo, and the wall speaks monuments of the work they do there and the quality that they do. He also works with the French Football Federation. He consults with them and also instructs and coaches, and has also worked in the United States in instructing the MLS directors, MLS academies, since, as a lot of you may know, the MLS has an affiliation with the French Football Federation in improving the education of their coaches. So, Mikel, welcome. You are from France. The feed looks good, so we're grateful for that. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Fred. I hope you are fine. It's dark here because it's 10 p.m., but we're very happy to be with you today.
That's great to have you. Our other distinguished guest and good friend is Bassam Naeem from Canada, A&B football in Canada. He worked with Al Wada FC in Abu Dhabi. He's been the technical director for KNSC in York. Also worked at York University in Toronto. Was the technical director for NMSC in Mississauga. He holds multiple A licenses, so many I'm not even going to read them. He's now the executive director for A&B football in Canada. Bassam is an individual who thinks differently than most in Canada, and he's been really, I think, for his forefront and his ingenuity, work rate, and intelligence, been super successful in Canada. And Canada, for the viewers watching, is very similar to the United States. If anything, I think maybe, I don't want to offend any of your friends watching Bassam, but I think maybe the profile of the United States, the World Cup, the national team, is a little bit higher than the Canadian profile. Yet, if we were to take A&B football and compare it to any top club in the United States, or Canada, you've been more successful than most. You have more or less, and you'll speak to us about this, your profile and whatnot. The reason why I bring it up, I think it's directly relatable, and I think you can tie back and relate your successes to possibly coaching directors, ECNL, DA, whatever the new league now, but whoever the directors are, the club coaches are, they can find success in what he's done. In the last 10 years, Bassam's had 8 players on the national team, 20 players officially sign at a professional youth academy in Europe, 20 over the last 10 years. And then most recently, he's trialed over 60 players, I want to say in a year. The last year or two, he's trialed over 60 players at professional youth academies in Europe. He has a successful model. We're talking France, England, Portugal, Italy, Spain, Germany, Norway, and the list keeps going. For those that want to track A&B football, he's got Danja Reed, who was in the MLS and also eventually went to Le Havre. Jordan Araujo, who's at Brighton. He was at Brighton and then also in Portugal. Nico Curijo is a goalkeeper currently now, I believe, at Le Havre. And then Daniel Jebison was at Sheffield, so in England, which is in the Premier League. So we mentioned a couple Premier League clubs, and also we know the top youth academy in France. So Bassam, enough about backgrounds, but welcome. I just wanted the people at home to know your quality and what you do and where you come from. So Bassam, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred, for having me, and I certainly want to echo your message and send a shout out from Canada to all the people on the front line, because we need them, we love them, we support them, and thank you for keeping us safe for now.
So what have you done, because you're very educated and you've seen what Mikel does at Le Havre, you've seen other top pro academies in the world. What have you taken to A&B for maybe a couple specifics? So
Sure.
People at home could say, hey, Bassam, he's sharp, he sees, because you've identified a ton of, we have the same issues in the United States, we have the same barriers maybe, or the same variables we're dealing with in juggling. what have you done to be as successful as you've been? Is it a one-size-fits-all? Obviously, it sounds like it's not, but can you give us a couple examples or one or two examples of things that have worked with maybe Reed or Rajo? Did they ever play up? Did they stay at their own age? Or maybe we took a completely different thought process with them, and we did this. Is there any one thing that you do maybe differently than the rest, or that you can pinpoint on, or where you've helped or you've taken from Europe?
Sure. So we have copied several things, and I'm going to go one step at a time, if I may. Number one, we came to a conclusion that football is no different than someone who wants to write a book. And they say, just to give you an example, in order for you to write a book, you need to read the alphabet. If you don't know the alphabet, you cannot write. Then you have to put a sentence, and then you have to put a paragraph, and then you have to put a page, and then you have to put a chapter, and then you have to put multiple chapters, and then maybe you can have a good book. People will judge you on it. So a player is the same thing. So the alphabets are the technical element of the game. If you don't teach technique, if you don't give these youngsters the A to Z alphabet of football, they're not going to be specifically, like I said before, we have gifted players in North America, but it's not the same environment as in Europe. Our kids are not playing on the streets still. In France, in the Quartier Parisien, and if people don't know what the Quartier Parisien is, maybe the best area in the world to discover youth athletes. People are playing on the streets, all immigrants, left and right and center, and in clubs, and in community clubs, and they're scouted by hundreds and hundreds of people. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mika. Please go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong. So that's one. Two, once you do that, once you believe in that, you put a philosophy that's age-related philosophy, and you cannot deviate. You can't deviate according to if coaches are not happy, or parents are not happy, or someone who's a sponsor not happy. We have those challenges in our culture. We keep consistency. We say, this is our philosophy. You come to our house. This is what we believe in, and this is what we brought this information from abroad, and we continue bringing and updating our information on an ongoing basis. I just came back from Europe, and I had to quarantine myself for 14 days. So just recently, that's 2 weeks ago. Cheers. So it's an ongoing process. And yes, once we get those players in our system, and I mentioned to you before, we've been blessed enough to have players that have been in our system for multiple years. He's been with us he was with us, he's not anymore with us, for close to 11 years, 10 plus years. So we are 7 to 17, if you want to call it, to use an age category. We start at U7, and they graduate at U17. So he spent practically from day zero until he graduated, went on to bigger and better things with A&B football. Adonijah Reed, 6.5 years with A&B football. So they go through all these stages. Now, yes, very specific players were able to play up. But here's what we worry about. Mika worry about injury. We worry about injury as well, but we worry about other things. Because the environment in France is totally different. You're talking about the #1 country after Brazil on a systematic basis to develop young players into the pro. And Canada we are in 100 plus in terms, now we're maybe less than 100 when it comes to FIFA ranking. A player plays them up. Sometimes they have their head, they can't fit anymore the environment. They think that they're much better than anybody else. So and we try to say, no, this is not what the objective behind it. This is not because your parents think that you should play up, you play up. This is not because you think you should play up, you play up. It's because we're playing you up for a reason. It's to challenge you and hopefully make you a better player. So we do. Adonijah played a year or two up. Jordan as well played too. But those are very unique and specific players that we have the privilege to have actually and to work with that we do. So yes, we worry about injury. There's a different type of as well, different details that we have so differently than France. France, the players, they live at the academy. Mika sees them every day. He knows when they go to school, what they eat, when they sleep. if they're sleeping or not, if they need recovery. Are they eating junk food? Are they following the programs that they put for them to make them better? They have to follow fitness. We had Dan, if you remember, Mika, at Le Havre for a year plus, a young man from in the youth academy.
I remember.
You know, I mean, the stuff that they work on him to strengthen his body, and you know, he spent there a year or so, and still he didn't succeed. But he's now in the U.S. He's had a good scholarship, playing at a decent level, and eventually he will. But he didn't succeed in Le Havre. But for us, that's a huge achievement to even get him to Le Havre and get him into the academy and experience a year at least under that, put a year under his belt, this young man. And the knowledge and the information that they work with, it's totally different than what we can work with here in Canada. I don't know young players what they're eating behind the scene. I don't know if they're sleeping on time. I don't know if they're recovering. I don't know if they do extra work needed for them. Mika can tell them, no, I need to see you on Wednesday after training for another half an hour because you need to work on something. I cannot do that because I have my field rented from 1 hour to another. So going back, so we have quite a bit of challenges. And yes, so what we've done, we have our philosophy that is A to Z. We truly believe in it. We do not deviate from it. And we believe, here's the biggest thing that we believe in. We believe that we are a prep environment for European players. We cannot say we can produce a total footballer in Canada yet. If we say that, we're actually not honest enough with ourselves. We do have the knowledge, we do have the know-how, but our environment is totally different. We prep these players and we make sure that we expose them as many times as possible before a certain age, usually 15, 16, where hopefully we're successful in placing them in Europe. That's for the players that have those abilities to go there. So we're a prep environment, and we are very careful that ourselves. We're being extremely realistic of who we are. I hope I answered your question. It's a little bit of a lot of information from different angles.
No, it's very interesting because Mikhail spoke about patience, okay? And you basically tied in the importance of patience by showing the other hand of it, right? Because in the United States, it's very difficult to be patient because of all these external factors. In Canada, excuse me. It is the same in the United States. Why? Because you have the parental influence, the pay for play and whatnot. So, Mika, it seems like I jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, I have 3 points to add to what you're saying and what Bassam said. You know, the first point is the youth development process is minimum 4-5 year process up to 11, 12, because we talked about Pogba, we talked about Mendy because they came at the age of 13 and they became pro at the age of 17. Okay, so it was a very short process because they were very gifted. Okay, but then sometimes it takes longer, and we have many pros, you know, who started, as Bassam said, at the age of 5.5. That means you start from zero, and then 10, 11 years later, they become pro. And this is the real success, I would say, of your academy, being able to bring a player from zero to the pro level. Okay, so we've got Lys Mousset, for instance. Lys Mousset is doing very well now in Premier League, you know, and he was young and he started at the age of 6 at the academy. This is the first point. The second point is, I think there is one key element I learned from Bob Bradley, because as I told you, I was assistant coach to Bob when he was manager in Le Havre, because he spent a year, you know, in Le Havre, and I think he taught me something very important in the youth development process. It's he was always saying, Michael, it's very important to coach the players and not to coach the exercise. Because in many clubs in France, when you go to training sessions, you feel that the coach focuses his eyes on the organization of the exercise, how to start, where to start the ball, how long it's gonna, where it has to move. A gives to B, B gives to C, C gives to D, D crosses, you score, you have to come back. But then the most important is not the exercise, the organization. The most important thing is to correct the behaviors, to give them, to feed them, I would say, with right advice, where to move, when to move, how to move, which cue can I see in the game, which will tell me, okay, I have to do this, or maybe I have to wait a little bit. I don't know if you remember, Fred, but at the symposium, I showed the behavior of Mbappe with the defender, how he is able to adjust his steps not to be offside, how he's able to raise the head 3 times without touching the ball. These are the elements which you have to bring to the players, when they are in the youth development process. And again, the exercise is only, I would say, the framework of what you're going to do. But if you're a painter and you have the framework, the most important thing is not the framework, is what you draw inside the framework, And sometimes, you have to bring to every single kid, the right advice to explain what to do, when to move, because each kid is different, and this is very important, because this is the tricky part for our job. We often focus on the team, but the team is made up of players, and we have to correct each player, because sometimes it's a question of organization. It's a question of understanding each other on the field. We are playing against another team, so if we understand each other, if I know you, if I know Bassan, if I know he's a right-footed guy, he prefers receiving the ball this way, then it will help me to improve my team and to make sure that the player will understand the game. Okay, so this is the second point is coach the players and don't coach the exercise. The exercise is only the framework, and the most important, Picasso, he doesn't care about the framework. He was caring about what he was drawing inside the framework. And this is, I think, the most important thing.
Can I add something to Mika, which is very interesting? We came to a conclusion after many years now, and I think it's very important for young coaches to understand that it just doesn't happen. Mika said it's a process, and you really truly have to believe in that process. Not only the coach has to believe in that process, the parent has to believe in that process, the player has to believe in that process. In our culture, I'm talking, Mika, because in France, you don't need the conviction like you need it in North America. In France, you wake up in the morning, you hear about your cousin and your neighbor that signed a pro. He is on TV, she is on TV. He transferred from one club to another. Today, every other day, there's a professional game. It's everything about the culture, everything about the movement of players. It's about the success of players, and every other day, there's a story. In our culture, we don't have that. So it's very difficult for our players. They're hungry, but it's very difficult when they only hear about everything somewhere else, not in their own environment. So how do I succeed? So we need to be able, from our side, us in North America, to have discussions and true and honest discussion and an educated discussion with our own coaches so they can believe in our own process as well, and our parents to believe that the process is long-term. It's not, you can't just look at a player a year or two and you think, no, you give up. Now, if he's 17 years old, it's different. I'm talking about players of the younger ages, mainly. So we have to believe that it's a process, and you have to believe that really the success of the individual is contribute eventually to the success of the collective. Mika just said it. That's exactly what I talk about, that we are driven at ANB Football to improve player on an individual basis, because eventually when you're technically sound and your decision making is good enough, I'm not going to say brilliant, good enough, you can put the group together and you know each other a little bit. You put them together, they understand what you want from them because they are already smart enough for the game. Maybe not smart enough to become pro yet, but smart enough, and they have the base on the technical side. So the success of the individual player is what contribute to the success of the collective, which is the team.
Yes, you're right, Bassam. I mean, in France, the system, just to sum it up very quickly, we all start at a very early age in a small club. You know, you play in your village, you play in a local club, and then when you are good, you know, then you are given the opportunity to go and play for bigger clubs, you know. And of course, the best is when you play for a pro club, because when you play for a pro club, it means you are selected. You are selected because of your level. I know that in the States, there are many good players, because when I go to the States, I can see many good players. Unfortunately, they are not given this opportunity to get into, I would say now maybe an MLS academy, probably, okay, because they try to copy the system we have in France, okay, and because you know that when you are young, when you are 10, 11, 12, let's say 12, 13, you have to try 4 or 5 times a week, once a day, okay, regularly, and at a high tempo. This is very important because, of course, again, driving a car is not the same as driving a Formula 1. Okay, if you drive a Formula 1, we are all drivers. Okay, we can all drive a car, but then it doesn't mean because I can drive a car, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be a good Formula 1 pilot. Because a Formula 1 pilot, he had this capacity to focus. He had this capacity to be sharp. You know, he has this capacity not to make mistakes at a very high speed. And this is the difference between a top player and a normal player. A normal player plays soccer, but makes mistakes, you know. When you play in Champions League, when you play in the World Cup, you know, the top players, you know, they move fast, they think fast, they sometimes even think before the action. So they know what's going to happen before the ball is given to the player, okay? And this is where I would say the Formula 1 is, the Formula 1 example is, you know, and only few of them can do it. And this is what we have to bring. And then Bassam, we have some players from Bassam, from his academy, in our academy. And Nicolas, he is doing well. He's a keeper. 3 years ago, he was in Canada. He came to a camp in Bassam's academy, and now he's training with the pro team, with the half. He was offered the opportunity to go and play with the Croatian national team. And this player, I mean, if you speak with him 3 years ago, I mean, he didn't expect to be at this level in Europe and maybe to be given the opportunity to play in the future, and we don't know, for a big team. You know? So again, the process is long because, as we said, it's hard to know. Okay, you can identify some ingredients, but it's hard to know and to bet. I'm going to be a pro, and then it's a long process, and this is very important. And again, I do agree with Bassam when he says in France we recruit the players at the age of 12, 11, 12, 13. And then we train every day until the age of 17, 18, 19, up to the pro team. And then in the pro team, if the players are good enough, they are given the opportunity to play at the better level. And this is the process in France.
It's really rewarding, interesting. It's a number of thoughts that come to my mind when you say you never know about the player. You never know when or who. So for both of you to say more or less, there's no recipe. It's not one thing. We never know. It's 100% this one person, and it's up to patience, dedicating the environment. So it's really interesting to hear because it's a message that I think a lot of coaches, youth coaches, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone in the United States, college included, it's amateur level. It's not a pro level, right? So if we understand, or we can understand and learn from you guys that, hey, we have a 12-year-old, he's on the B team at our club, we don't know if that 12-year-old will be on the A team or might even be on the national team 8 years from now, or be on this university. Maybe they come in at this university here, and over the course of their career, we see it all the time. Then the top university wants to take the player, and then this and that. So it's really a nice point, delivered really well. So I appreciate you sharing that with everyone. For those that just joined us or didn't get it earlier, Mikhail joined us at the International Coaching Symposium that the Florida Soccer School runs every year in August with the Florida Youth Soccer Association at their AGM. And you both referenced this separately in the questions you were talking to. Bassam, you mentioned about how detailed you are in sticking to the formula. You say formula. I'm a numbers guy, so that resonates with me. But every year you have something different for the players' developmental needs. Maybe there's something repeated if it's not mastered, but you have specific priorities you're working on every year with your youth so that they have the technical and mental skill set. Mikhail, you have identified, and you spoke wonderfully at the symposium. In fact, you were one of the most popular, if not the most popular presenter there was. And you spoke to us about perception, and you referenced it early on. What does perception mean to you, and why is it so important? And then Bassam, I'm going to follow up with a separate question for you, unless he triggers something that you'd like to say. So what is perception? You referenced it earlier. I have had the pleasure to learn from you, so I know what it means. But for the coaches at home that didn't have the opportunity to come to last year's symposium, can you just fill them in briefly on what perception means to you and the importance of it?
Yeah, I mean, when I go on fields, in France and in everywhere, I often listen to the coaches, and they often say, "Raise your head, watch up," That's because we know that when you play soccer, you need your eyes, okay? Because 85% of the information you receive on the field comes from the eyes, The problem is, I don't think, and I had a discussion last week with the French Federation, and they are very interested in the topic because, in fact, perception is something very particular at the highest level. And I don't know if you remember when we presented this last August at the symposium, but I would sum up, or I would define the perception as the capacity of the player not to focus his eyes, on the ball, but to focus his eyes on everything around him. What do I mean by this? I mean, on the field, there are two teams and there is one ball. And often, the ball, if you focus your eyes on the ball, then you miss everything around the ball, okay? And if you remember the videos I showed during the symposium, but I've got some others now because I'm working a lot on the topic, and you came at the academy a month ago, and you could see how we work. We teach them how to focus on space, on direct opponent, on the capacity to adjust with the ball according to the situation. Because if you remember the videos we showed during the symposium, Mbappe, Luis Suarez, Xavi, they spend all the time turning the head, all around them, watching over their shoulder to know what's going on around them. Their heads act like a radar, And Arsene Wenger, famous guy, I guess you know him. Arsene Wenger made a study, with the Norwegian university, and they analyzed, the behaviors of the top players, and they could see that 10 seconds before receiving the ball, a player is able to raise his head between 6 to 8 times, a top player. And an average player raises his head maybe 2, 4 times, 5 times. So he considers perception as a key criteria which makes the difference between the top players and the other ones. And I do, because now I've been studying this topic for a long time, and I've got many videos and many studies, and now I'm working with the university because I'm not a scientist, you know. I'm a coach, but I just wanna help my kids to grow, and if I can find something that will help them to understand what's going on around them, because when you know that perception is knowing what's going on around you, spaces, defenders, teammates, and then you make the right choices. And when you when you look at the behaviors of Messi, of Xavi, of Suarez, Mbappe, Neymar, they have this capacity to look at the field, to raise their head without watching the ball in their feet, or without watching the ball moving on the ground. And they've got this capacity to understand what's going on around them. Okay, and I was given the chance to speak with many top players. And when you discuss with them about this in Europe and in France, and when you discuss with them about this topic, they say, look, what you're saying is what I've got the impression that's what I was feeling on the ground. Because a top player told me last week, he said he was a top player, he plays for the French national team a long time ago, and he said, look, when you are on the field, you don't need to know where the ball is, because you know where the ball is. The ball is moving, you know where it is. But you need to be able to focus on what's going on around you to find the right space to receive the ball in the right decision. So, again, technique is of course part of the process, okay? Because it's important to consider perception as a skill. Alongside the technical skills, the tactical skills. Because at the moment, when you talk with the coaches, when you speak with the coaches, if you say, what are the main fields, in soccer to train, they will say technique, tactics, mental, and the physical side, or the physical strength. But then, you can consider perception as, I would say, one side of tactics, okay, because this is the first step of intelligence. Because I just remind what I showed, during the symposium. Intelligence is divided into 4 parts, perception, okay, understanding, deciding, and executing, okay. So, and it is very important. We work a lot on executing, on understanding, on interpreting, on making decisions. But then, to make a decision, you have to see. And if you don't see, if you only see one solution, you will play this solution. If you see 3, 4, 5 solutions, you will be able to decide. And this is because I often hear making decisions. Yes, but if I don't see, I can't make decisions. So we have to teach the players, and when I say smart, we have to teach the players how to become smart, how to understand their surroundings when they play, because the surrounding moves. Each time the ball is moving, the surrounding is changing, and that they have to be able to adjust according to this surrounding, according to the move of the ball, and be able to find the right answers. And this is for me what I mean by smart, by perception. And to finish, I would say we all know what perception is, because there is a famous quote, in French. It's hard to from a French philosopher, and he says, if I ask you, if I speak about this, you will say, yes, I know. But if I ask you what it is, then you will say, I don't know what it, and this is perception. Okay, perception is, if I say perception, everybody will say, oh yeah, of course. But then, Fred and Bassam, you went to the academy, and you could see how we work. Okay, this is, we have 3 parts, 3 sequences a week dedicated on the development of perception with a player.
Bassam, have you, obviously I see the head nod, have you incorporated or adopted any of this thinking into what you do in your academy? Obviously you spoke separately, about the understanding players reading the game. Is this something that you guys do? Is it built into your curriculum? Is it something you've adopted recently? How does this fit in with you guys, or what is your interpretation?
This has been I would say I've been looking at it for the last couple of years now, but I think Mika has been a lot more vocal about it and writing about it recently, if I'm correct. Correct, Mika? I remember, correct me if I'm wrong.
Actually, you're right. This is something I discovered 2 years ago. Because I was taking my youth license, in Europe, in France, and they asked us to analyze the behaviors of the top players, and I discovered by chance, this capacity of the players to not to focus the eyes on the ball and to focus around. And then I discussed with some top players, and they said, yes, that's true. When we play on the ground, when we are on the field, we do not focus our eyes on the ball. And then I could see, and I don't know if you remember the symposium, Arsene Wenger, and I could read. And if you went to the symposium, you could see the interview, but you can find the interview on the web. And then he says, look, he's a top coach. He's a very famous coach. He's very experienced, and he said, yes, I consider perception as a key criteria which make the difference between top players and the others. And when you take this puzzle, all the pieces of the puzzle, you say, okay, there is something to learn here as a coach. Because as a coach, I want, again, to improve the level of my players. And I consider this field, maybe I have to be humble, but I consider perception as a new field to work and to develop with young players.
So having said that, I remember, I don't remember exactly the date. I was in France, and Mika was talking to me about, and when he was doing his study, we had some discussion about that. And then he said, come and see what I do on the pitch, which I always watch what he does on the pitch, but come and see how I'm trying to apply it on the pitch. Obviously, it's not just easy to just go and just pick it up and come and apply it in your own environment. Knowing already the challenge that we have in our environment. But I did see. But I tell you what I pick up on from what I've seen in his own environment. I came to a conclusion, and that's not just in the last 2 years, but more so a conviction in the last 2 years, that a lot of our coaches copy information, whether if it's a training from videos or books or whatever, and they just apply what they copy. They just take the information and apply it. That's not what's going to develop the players. Anybody can take that and just say, okay, let's mirror that same exercise. It's actually the quality of the coach to deliver the information, the correction at the right time, the space, the understanding of the players, to give them pointers in the key moment that will help them improve their football level or their playing level, and with time will help them slowly develop as he or she working on the technical element, the tactical element, the physical element, because they're all connected. Going back to perception, I did take a little bit of that, whereby I wanted to coach myself on it, because I'm not experienced in it. I mean, that's a new topic he's talking about, and he is 100% true in what he's saying in that sense. I watched him how he coached, and I started to apply certain things that I'm trying to hopefully eventually improve on myself, so I can relate that to my player. So it's not something, and that's as well why coach education is a key and ongoing coach education, proper ongoing coach education, not going on the internet and taking a little certification, not just reading a book and thinking just going for a weekend and just getting certified. It's actually watching top professional players like Mika on the youth level in France and watching his dynamics with the players and say, okay, how can I take that and create a realistic environment in my own place back home? Because it's not the same. I don't deal with the same. His quality, and I'm not trying to put my players down. I love my players at the academy, and I think highly of them. And some of them are succeeding very well, and some of them have a great future coming. We have a lot of young, talented athletes in our academy, and I'm excited to have that. But he has talented plus. He has talented plus he's working with. That's reality. I'm not trying to insult anyone. I cannot just say I can do exactly the same thing, but I can learn and I can adapt and I will make mistakes myself first, and the players will make mistakes. And I have to be patient with myself, and I have to be patient with the player. Funny enough, if you see me on the pitch, you say, you're not patient, you're so demanding and aggressive. But yes, you have to be demanding and aggressive at the same time. You have to show them your passion as a coach. Otherwise, they don't, especially in our environment. In France, they don't need Mika to show them more passion than necessary. They already have everything they want. They have the professional league. They have the scouting system. They have, opportunities galore left and right center. They know if they do well, they're going places. In our culture, we tend to be, as coaches, we have to give more energy to our player because, unfortunately, there's not much yet for them. It's starting. So going back, perception and the topic of it is, I would say, it will be a main topic in the future, or as we go forward in the coaching, some new topics and will be included. But here's as well, it links to today, where you see in North America, everybody's telling you, let's do video training. And everybody, individual video training. We talked about this topic, Mika and I, and yourself a couple of days ago. And Mika said, well, we keep in touch with the players. It's not really, that's not really football training. I mean, they're active. And then if you look at it from what he just said, from a perception point of view, that player is training with the ball and he or she, their head is down every time they're doing something. So it's not mirroring anything that called realistic football environment.
You're talking about, sorry Bassam, you're talking about training right now during this problem, right?
Yes, during the COVID, and everybody's asking, let's do individual video training. Yes.
One important point, because first I have to say, and again, it's not because I'm working on this topic, but in France it's very new. It's a very new topic. I mean, when I say new topic, I mean, again, I had a video conference last week with the national trainers, national coaches in France, because they wanted to know more about this topic. Okay, so now we are developing this topic, and we try to understand and to find specific, or to use specific tools to develop this perception. This is the first. This is a very important point. And the second point is, I'm lucky because I'm given a chance to go to the US every summer to organize camps for AC in Connecticut, because my chairman is American and comes from Connecticut. And I use those tools, with the kids in Connecticut, at the camp. And it was very interesting because the kids did like them, because it's a funny drill, it's technical, it can be game. It's funny drill, it seems easy, but it's not so easy, and they could make it. And this is because, as you said, Bassam, you're right. At the academy, we've got top players, very easy with the ball, very talented, gifted. But then I wanted to try with kids who were coming at the camp and who just wanted to play games and work and have technical exercises. And they could make it, and they did enjoy it. So it was very interesting because they were discovering it, but at the same time, it was a kind of challenge for them because the ball was in front of them, they were looking behind them, and it was a kind of funny thing for them, but they could make it. So this tells me that perception is everywhere, at every level, and then I think that as a coach, and this is what I'm working on now, as a coach, I have to try to give the tool to my player to develop this skill, this quality. And of course, I would say maybe the top players, they already have it. Were they born with it, or were they taught how to make it, how to do it? I don't know. But for sure, as a coach, and as I said, 3 times a week, I organize 3 sequences inside my sessions every week during the whole year, 12 minutes, okay, to develop this quality. And the kids like it, and I promise you that when they know that perception is important, they change their behavior. But again, it's a long-term process because you don't change behaviors and things they were doing in a week or two. It takes a long time.
Bassam, did you want to, we kind of jumped in there, did you want to finish your story, or sorry to cut you off on that one?
No, not at all. I just wanted to say that I'm aware of it, and you mentioned, do we use it? Well, the top level hasn't yet perfected it, if you want to call it, or hasn't applied it properly. So I've seen Mika doing exercises, and I'm in the process. I would say I was in the process, since now we've been off for a while. I was in the process of doing some of it this year to apply it. You have to be honest enough as a coach. You have to be good at it yourself before you even give it to your players. Otherwise, they're not going to improve. And that's a problem that we have in North America, that our coaches, they have to face reality and say, am I good enough to be able to improve players at the age that I'm working with? Not just because I like the idea of being the coach at the U12 or U14, whatever age category. That's another topic by itself.
So now you were talking about, and we spoke about this off air, you were talking about how, well, Mikhail, you brought it up, how Luav was doing their training, and you showed us the phone, and seemingly you had at Luav a bunch of players training right now, but on their own at home. And the coach was leading it, and the players were all following, and maybe it was a technological to allow everyone to see. Bassam, you were commenting on that, and I jumped in because I don't know that the audience really could distinguish. It was not an on-the-field thing, and it was an at-home individual thing. So what can you just go back and just tell the coaches at home watching about that conversation and what we were talking about, what all of our thoughts were on that.
Well, a couple of what about you? Tell us, Mika. You go ahead.
Yeah, actually, yes. We've been locked down, for a month now, and we have to stay home until May 11th. So we had to, because of this terrible virus, we had to close the academy because, as you know, in Europe and especially in Italy, Spain, and France, the situation is quite complicated. So we have to stay home to make sure that we do not give the virus to other ones. So that means that all the kids cannot train and they have to stay home. So this is very tricky for us because the boys at the academy, as I told you, they are like Formula 1s, so they need to train every day because, they are high level, or they play at the highest level in their own stage, so they have to train every day. But now they have to stay home. Some are in apartments, some live in houses with gardens, and you cannot go out except to go to the supermarket. So we decided at the beginning to say, okay, we have to keep in touch with them because they are young, and if we do not connect with them every day, then they will eat, they will drink, they will sleep the whole day. So we decided to organize a school process. Okay, so they have school every day, so they receive lessons and they receive courses every day. Then we have organized a challenge to develop their capacity to focus. So we have organized special games they can do at home in their own bedroom or in the hall or somewhere in their houses, and they are developing their capacity to focus. And we've organized a challenge, so they have to film when they do it, and they have to go as fast as possible. And we compare with the young pilots for the Formula 1 because it's focus. So we've created this parallel between Formula 1, the capacity of the pilots to focus, and the capacity of the players. And we also organize training sessions live. So we use, I don't know if I can say the name, but we use Zoom, the Zoom app. Okay, we connect everybody at the same time on the Zoom app, and then they have a 45, 50-minute session with the ball, without the ball. Of course, we cannot, I mean, working at home with the ball, with a chair, with a table, is not the same as working every day with a team. Of course, I mean, we know that the result is far from what we are used to doing at the academy. But we keep connection with them, and they keep connection with the staff. They keep connection all together because they can see each other, so they can challenge each other. And I can send you, if you want, I can send you one or two pictures or one or two videos just to show you how it is. And you would be surprised. You would be surprised because the kids, they like it. They are all together. They can see each other. The coach say, okay, now let's do this, let's do that. It's very intense, okay? And again, we know that it's not a session we do at the academy, but we keep contact and we organize a regular work every day from Monday to Saturday.
So, Bassam, go on.
This is very good, actually. Thank you, Mika, because, you know, the environment of Mika is totally different than our environment. Those players are with him on what we call full-time players in France is totally different than what you call a full-time player in North America, unless you're living and you're going to school, living and breathing the academy. So Mika does it to keep in touch with them. Really, that's the objective, and keep a little active. Here we have a lot of people are anxious that, you know, why don't we do training online? And I worry that in our environment, to our reality, where kids are doing computerized, because it's just doing technical training in 2x2 and 2 meters and 5 meters. You know, talking about perception as well, your head is down all the time, and now you're doing it for a month and a half, or 2 months. You're going to develop bad habits. You know, you're not going to be looking around. To start with, you're not in a natural football environment. You want to be active? Not a problem. Put some music on, pick a ball, and do whatever you want with it, and be active. And you can do it. You don't need me to help you. That's in our own environment. Mika, would you agree with me on that?
Yes, I do agree. I do agree with you. Yes, you're right. You're right.
You know,
but you know, I mean, it's more than the physical work, or it's more than the connection. The idea is as a team, because we work as a team. So the idea is, instead of being in your home with your ball, let's be together 45 minutes a day and let's work together. So let's chat, let's work, and let's have a teamwork, I would say, in this special environment, because now we are working home. And I think it's good because, you know, after each session, they laugh, you know, they are happy to be with each other, because some are in Paris, some are in Le Havre, some, as I told you, some are in apartments, others are have gardens, they can run, some cannot run. So it's keeping this team links, those team links, and this is what we expect from that kind of work.
On this perspective, I totally agree. I think we miss that as the players don't see each other. Already in our culture, they don't see each other enough. In your environment, as the players living at the academy, they're with each other 24/7 practically, between school, living at the academy, training, sleeping there, and they go maybe once a week to see their parents, or do they stay all the time at the academy? Do they go once a week, or do they stay more than once a week?
You mean from our academy?
Yeah, when they're staying at the residence, if they go back, they go once a week, no?
No. They usually go back home every 3 weeks.
Every 3 weeks.
Every 3 weeks, huh? Okay, because we usually have games, official games in the weekend, so we try in the week. So every 3 weeks, it depends on the age, okay, but every 3 weeks, we allow them to come back home. So they often see their parents or their families, I would say 2 days every 3 weeks, okay?
So it's totally different environment from us too. I mean, our kids come to training and they go home. We only see them 2 hours. Yeah. So yes, we are missing that from that perspective. I definitely agree. But I have a concern in our culture when we create, and depends how long we go, if you create a training environment where you're focused on the 2x2 and you're always looking down, you're going to develop that habit. I truly believe that.
We have a few more minutes. Hopefully, I can, because we've been going for a while now. We spoke about a couple things, but now maybe I can ask you guys what you think about the future of football. So maybe, obviously, perception is maybe part of the future. So I think this is a big thing for coaches at home to think about. Is there any other trends that you see? Is there another outside of perception in football? Bassam, maybe for you in Canada, Mikhail, maybe for you in France. Any other trends that we see, maybe? What do you think?
So I would say in France there are two ways. First, for the amateur clubs. I think the amateur clubs in France have to improve in the way they coach, the technical work, the tactical work, and it has to be, as I said, coaches rather coachy. The coach exercises and not the behavior. So this has to be improved. Okay. For the top level, I think the next field to improve and to increase is the mental side, because the top players now, they have a good technique. They are tactically sharp, I would say. They know the game, and when you look at when you watch a game in Champions League, the World Cup. But then, what makes the difference between PSG and Barcelona? I mean, or Bayern Munich, Man City. All the teams are about the same level, and then the difference is made with details. And I would say the psychological part at this level is what makes the difference. So I would say, again, the amateur club, the amateur level in France, I would say is a global way of training. But for the highest level in our academies, and of course to prepare the top players, I would say to develop this mental side. How to give confidence, how to develop the fighting spirit, how to make sure that the player will focus during 90 minutes. Because you know that when you play at the World Cup, when you play the final of the World Cup, one mistake is one goal. So you have to be focused all the time to make sure that the player is tired, but is also aware of what's going on around him. Because you know that when you are tired, then you lose your capacity to read and your capacity to make decisions. So I think that the mental side now is the most tricky one, because it's very hard to act on the brain and to act on the feelings. But I think this is where we have now to work on to improve. And to finish, I would say perception is part of it.
I'll add to that. I would say we cannot, like I said in the majority of my discussion, that we cannot mirror exactly what. So I cannot just say that's what I see. I see here in North America that, number one, I think, yes, on the amateur level, the quality of coaching has to become much, 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 much better. And the quality of environment, even at the amateur level, field environment, quality of coaching, and as well understanding that it's okay not everybody's going to be a pro, not everybody's going to succeed, and not everybody, we're all going to have different level, okay? So the quality of education parents need to acquire and coaches need to help or guide players and parents has to improve. That's from the youth level. I would say worldwide, I believe personally that the game will continue to become a little bit faster. It's at an amazing speed, and it will become faster. The quality of players is improving in every position. In the past, defenders were not as gifted as today. Today, defenders are very, very gifted, and they can make a difference. I would say that will continue to improve on the world stage, and the quality of football will be more and more attractive for all of us to watch, specifically from North America. Having said that, I believe in our culture here the speed of game, the speed of play at the highest level is not good enough. We are behind Europe, I would say maybe 10 to 12 years at least. I hope I'm not insulting anyone in that matter. So I cannot say, well, I'm going to work with quality of player on the Champions League to make that mental decision that has to improve. Yes, you will need to improve the mental decision to improve the quality of the game at our level here in North America. I think the speed of play has to be better, has to improve. The speed of decision or decision making under pressure. But the reality is the speed up the game and the action in the game has to be much faster. We are seeing some young, gifted North American players and American players and so on. But I'm hoping that eventually we'll continue working very hard and we continue investing in the game and investing in the youth in the game in North America to improve the level, because without investing in the youth and improving the coaching development at the same time as improving our player development, we're not going to see improvement in the game. That's my perception or my opinion on it. Not to confuse perception with his topic.
No, but you're right, Bassam. And I would like to do this because you at the beginning of the show, you were asking us Pelé or Maradona or Cruyff or Beckenbauer. If Pelé or Maradona, and of course they have a great careers and I respect their careers, but if they were playing now, would they be the player they were when they were playing at that time, or would they be normal player? I don't know. I cannot tell you, but because when you compare now soccer to the 60s, the 80s, and now it's so well organized, it goes so fast, and as you said, Bassam, I do agree with you, it will get faster and faster. Okay, the passing, the ball, the capacity, the technical quality, and you're right on that point.
Thank you. I'd like to add 2 points for the viewers that they might not know. I believe, and I think I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, Mika, Le Havre is the oldest club in France.
It is.
It is.
It was the first club. It was the first club ever established in France in 1872.
Wow.
So that's a fact. And another thing, Mika mentioned it, and I don't know if the viewers, specifically if they're American viewers, know that the president of the club is an American citizen or American-born.
Yes, you're right. Vincent Volpe. He's been living in France for a long time now, but yes, he's American and he still lives in the States. And he bought the club 5 years ago, and now he's helping us to grow and to develop a good culture, which will help us to grow in the future.
How would you translate Vincent Volpe to an American name then?
Actually,
Vincent Volpe.
Actually, he's Italian. He has Italian roots. So
I see. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's 2 facts.
Well, I want to personally thank both of you for joining us. We really appreciate it, and hopefully the viewers that are with us really value it and can take something from it. So thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it, Bassam and Mikal. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Fred, we wish you all the success, and everybody stay safe. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah, and likewise, again, I think it's important. I've said before on previous discussions that we've had, but everyone, the nurses, the doctors, the techs, first responders, everyone working, we appreciate it. We cannot thank you enough. You allow us to have a wonderful discussion about football and share time with friends. Friends and family is, I think, one of the most beautiful things the game gives us. This is an example, our relationships here. So it's nice to be able to talk like this. But if it wasn't for everyone doing everything they can at the front line, maybe we don't have this opportunity. So thank you to everyone doing that. Thank you again to FYSA and Georgia Soccer. As Mikal referenced quite a bit, we run the International Coaching Symposium in August every year with FYSA at their AGM. Mikhail, we hope to see you soon. And everyone watching, you're welcome to join us there if that's something you're interested in. And definitely furthering education. This is why you guys hammered home developing yourself, developing the coaches under you, learning. Too often, I think, in the United States and in North America, Canada, we work. And we're in a cycle of, we have to work, we have to do this, but we lose sight of, we could do something, but we have to maybe also spend time developing ourselves, improving what we do. And if we don't spend time to do that, then how can we continue to grow and give the most? Because the game is always changing, as you guys said. So hopefully this has been helpful for everyone. We hope to see everyone soon on the field. Mikhail, best of luck in France. Thank you for joining us at night, your time. Bassam, stay out of the snow in Canada up there, and stay safe, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred.
See you guys.